On Mem Aleph from the Bais. The Mishnah on Mem Aleph from the Bais. Oh, that's in between. Okay. The Mishnah says, Hashoichet, L'shem Eily, L'shem Zvachim. What's happening here is that there are certain sacrifices that a person can bring as a donation. There are other sacrifices that you can't bring them as a donation. Either you have to bring them or you don't, but you can't donate them. So, if someone did a sin, he could bring a sin offering, but he can't donate a sin offering. So, if someone never designated these animals as sacrifices, but just at the time of the Shechita, he just says, this is for the sake of an Eily. So it looks like he's bringing an Eily. It's not an Eily, even though an Eily is a donation. He could have donated it, but he never did. It's just at the Shechita, he says, this is for the sake of an Eily. So there's a Marasayan issue here, that it looks like he's bringing a sacrifice outside the temple. I could see this happening by Kaparas, where someone would be saying, this is for a sin or something. He could say something that could put some things into question. I don't know exactly what he would say that would be an issue, but it's not for food, because he himself isn't going to eat it. He could say it's for some... Okay, so here we say, if someone slaughters and he says that this animal is for the sake of an Eily, or it's for the sake of another sacrifice, like a shlamim, l'shem Hashem tali, for the sake of a doubtful guilt offering. Now, usually an Hashem tali is brought if someone had two pieces of meat, and one of them was chaylev, 2 pieces of fat. One was shuman, was the kosher fat. And he ate one of them, and he doesn't know. There's still another spot. He doesn't know which one it was, so he brings an Hashem tali. The other example that Rashi brings is that there's 2 women in his house. One is his wife and one is his sister, and he sleeps with one of them. He doesn't know which one, and I guess they're not telling him either. So he has to bring a sin offering for the possible sin. So that's a Hashem tali. And he's slaughtering a regular animal here, and he's saying this is for the sake of an Hashem tali. It's a doubtful a guilt offering. L'shem Pesach, he brings he's slaughtering an animal. He says it's for the sake of a carbon Pesach. L'shem Taida, or for the sake of a Thanksgiving offering. All of these is shchita psul, and the reason why it's puzzle is because it is possible that these could have been donated, and it looks like to the outsider, to the observer, it looks like he's bringing a sacrifice outside the temple. But Reb Shimon says it's not a problem. Reb Shimon is not concerned with Marasayan. That's the way Rashi writes it. Shnayim meichzim b'sak, and 2 people are holding on to the knife. We have this case in every Mishnah. V'sheichten, and they're slaughtering. Echad l'shemechem mikol Eily. One of them has the problematic thoughts. V'echad l'shem davar kosher, and one of them has thoughts that are valid. So shchita psula. That would be no, over here, because it's Marasayan, it must have been verbalized. It must have been. Usually there is a machlekes about that, but here it would have to be verbalized.
That was a safe one. That was a safe bet. That was machlekes.
Right. So, besides Farizel Makayman, Shal Svachim, there's a machlekes everywhere else. So only chapter without a machlekes. That's why we say it every morning. So, Hasheichet l'shem chatas. You see, here we have the contrast. Someone slaughters for the sake of a sin offering. Now, you can't bring a sin offering if you didn't do a sin. L'shem Hashem vadai, for a guilt offering, which is specifically for certain sins of either stealing and swearing falsely, or he had benefit from things that were sanctified to the temple, or whatever. There's a few details here. Shifcha charufa is a complex case of a maidservant that's half owned and half maid, half freed, and partially married, and he lives with her. But it's a specific sin. L'shem bechar, or for the sake of a firstborn animal. No, here, if it's not a firstborn, you can't. So he's saying things that are not applicable. So, l'shem meiser, for the sake of a tenth, the tithe animal. And if this is not a tithe, if he didn't have 10 animals, and this is not a tithe animal. L'shem t'mura, for the sake of an exchange sacrifice. If you didn't have another sacrifice, you can't exchange it for anything. There's a rule that you're not allowed to exchange one sacrifice for another. If he does, they both become sacrifices. That was the rule. But if he doesn't have a second one, so what he did here is obviously nothing, and even the observer knows that it's meaningless. So over here, shchitas ikshera. Over here, it's valid. And zehaklal kol davar shenider v'nidev. The rule is that anything that could be donated, hasheichet l'shma is aser. If someone slaughters for that sake, then it's forbidden. But if it can't be donated, then it's obviously a fake thing. It's not a real issue. So then it's going to be kosher.
It would seem that Reb Shimon argues on all of this.
Reb Shimon argues and says that there's no marasayan. We're not concerned about the problem. You know where Reb Shimon is.
So I'm saying he doesn't agree. He doesn't agree with his cloud.
He doesn't agree. Oh, right.
He's not worried about
Right. Okay, the Gemara says. We quote here. Hasheichet l'shem Eily. Someone slaughters for the sake of an Eily, and this probably should be a chulu, etc. I don't know. How does your Gemara have it? You have like a...
No.
No. Okay, because the Gemara immediately asks, Asham Tali bar nidav v'nidavu? You see what I'm saying? Is a Asham Tali a doubtful sin offering? Is that something that could be donated? A guilt offering? He had to have committed this sin, at least eaten one of the pieces of meat, lived with one of these women, and had the doubt in order to bring it. The Gemara says, "I'm Rabbi Yochanan." Rabbi Yochanan says, "Hamani Rabbi Elazar." Is it Rabbi Eliezer? It's supposed to be Rabbi Eliezer. This is the opinion of Rabbi Eliezer. You have Rabbi Eliezer. Right?
It says Elazar.
You have Elazar.
In English, it's translated Eliezer.
It says Elazar in Hebrew and in English.
Okay.
In English, it's Eliezer.
Let's follow the Steinsaltz. He's usually into the manuscripts. It's the opinion of Rabbi Elazar that says, "The Amar misnadav adam Hashem tali b'chol yom." No, Rabbi Elazar is. This is Rabbi Elazar.
Oh, this guy?
Yeah, that's Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov. It's always going to say Rabbi Elazar ben Yaakov if it's referring to him. Yeah, this is Rabbi Elazar, Elazar ben Shmuel, and what we're questioning if it's Rabbi Eliezer up here. So that would be. So, but Rabbi Elazar holds that a person can bring an Asham Tali every day. This is very interesting. His opinion is that someone may, we would call it like OCD, but he may always think that I must have done something wrong. I don't know if I did it wrong.
Jewish guilt.
Jewish boy. And Rabbi Elazar holds he's allowed to bring it, even if he didn't actually have that scenario of two pieces of meat and he ate one of them, like a just in case, So according to that opinion, it's very possible that the person is actually donating an animal here, even though he didn't have that scenario where it would be a real obligation to bring it. Now the Gemara asks again, Pesach bar nidav v'nidavu? Zmana kviyalei. You can't just bring a korban Pesach. There's a time to bring a korban Pesach. So he's slaughtering it for the sake of a korban Pesach. We said, maybe he really means it. So it's marasayan. Maybe he's bringing a sacrifice outside the temple. The problem is it's Rosh Chodesh Shvat. It's not the 14th of Nisan. What do you mean he's bringing a korban Pesach? Am Rabbi Shia Shani Pesach Hayel Vafar Shasi Kol Hashana Kula. Pesach, he could designate it the whole year, and then if you bring a Pesach not in its time, it becomes a shlamim. So he can call it a Pesach, but it doesn't matter. It turns into a shlamim, and a shlamim is a peace offering that can always be brought. Amar Rabbi Yanai. If you want to look at the names here are interesting. Rabbi Yanai should be a teacher of Rabbi Yochanan. We have that. Yeah, right above Rabbi Yochanan is Rabbi Yanai. And in the Amoraim of Eretz Yisrael. Rabbi Yanai is up there. So, if you work through this, the name, it becomes very interesting because we started off with Amar Rabbi Yochanan. We start with Rabbi Yochanan, answering the Asham Tali question. We said Rabbi Oishia. Right, Rabbi Oishia, but I want to see him on this page. Rabbi Oishia is on the top. You would see on this page, he's straight up there on the top, Rabbi Oishia. Wow. And then we're on Rabbi Yanai again, is going to give a statement. So we have Rabbi Yochanan and Rabbi Oishia, and now we're on Rabbi Yanai, who's in the center. So it's really, with this whole discussion, this Gemara is based in Amirai, Eretz Yisrael. These are the fun things to look in the Yerushalmi to see if they have it the same. Rabbi Yanai says, "Leishanu al atmimim." This could only be an issue if the animals did not have a blemish. Aval bali mumin, but if they had a mum, then made the yediyah. Then everyone knows that it's not an issue, because he can't be designating this as a sacrifice. It has a blemish. Rabbi Yochanan Amar, the student. Rabbi Yochanan says, it's funny to call Rabbi Yochanan the student. He's the big teacher in Israel. Maradara di Israel is called. Rabbi Yochanan says, "Afilu bali mumin nami." It could even be a bal mum, and nevertheless we still have an issue. Why? Zimnin deramile midi amumma v'la yediyah. Could be that there's something that's put over the mum, and he doesn't see it. Usually a mum is visible, but it's possible that this mum wasn't visible, and people could think that this was actually being brought as a sacrifice outside the temple. So we've discussed an issue here of bringing something that appears to be a sacrifice outside the temple, and that would be a problem. And now we say Asheichel l'shem chatas, so when that slaughters for the sake of a sin offering. Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Yochanan says, "Leishanu." This was only taught el sheina mechuyev chatas, that he didn't do a sin. But if he did a sin, aval mechuyev chatas. But if he did a sin, people know about the sin. Then it's possible that he's bringing this actual for a real sacrifice, and that would be a concern. He's bringing it outside the temple. What's going on? I remember someone was telling me some Samaritan person in what's the park in Manhattan, the big park, Central Park. In Central Park, he was offering he was slaughtering a Paschal lamb. Something. Got arrested. So.
Because he was doing it right.
Because it was outside the temple.
Right.
So, this person, maybe he was trying to bring a sin offering. And so, Emel L'Shum Chatasi, maybe he's bringing it for his sin offering. L'Shum Chatasi Waisa. The Gemara says, V'halei Kama L'Shem Chatasi. But he didn't say for the sake of my sin. He just said for the sake of a sin offering. And he didn't say my sin offering. So, Amar Rabavo. See Rabavo? It's right on the side over here. It should be... the student. Yeah, right underneath. Rabbi Yochanan. Rabbi Vo says, "Ba'im l'shem chatasi." He says, we're talking about a case where it would be an issue if he says, "I'm bringing it for my sin offering." That would taka be an issue. Okay. L'shem t'mura. We're going to have the similar issue brought up again. For the sake of an exchanged offering. Amar Rabbi Lazar, leishanu. Rabbi Lazar is friend, Rabbi Lazar ben Pedas. Rabbi Lazar says this was only taught if he doesn't have another sacrifice in his house.
How do people know what he has inside his house?
Yeah.
Pretty nosy people.
Right. Right. Yeah, that's an interesting point.
That's where the expression "wide open house" came from.
Right. But if he does have a sacrifice in his house, maybe he is actually exchanging. Tmura, the word tmura is there. Maybe he's exchanging it for his sacrifice. The Gemara says, but he didn't say I'm exchanging it for my sacrifice, he just said for the sake of an exchange. It's interesting, Rabbi Vo is explaining Rabbi Lazar now. Okay, Zeh HaKlal. Does it say here? Yeah. When did we had yesterday Kisrin, or we had recently Bekisri? It's in my head that we had Kisri the other day.
Yeah.
How did we bring up Kisri? Yeah, Maisa Kisri. That Rabbi was in Kisri. So, okay. Yeah, Caesarea. Caesarea.
We read that yesterday. What happened in Caesarea?
You said there was a story and they didn't want to make it forbidden. He thought about it.
The Kiva lives in
Really?
a certain period of time.
Uh-huh. He slaughtered an animal, but he thought about intending to sprinkle the blood. And we're questioning if you can, during the slaughtering, can you think about another service? That happened. Okay. Now we say Zehaklal. Who? I'm sorry. It was built up by
Romans.
Or Herod. Herod probably.
Concerts there now. It's a big concert theater.
Oh yeah, in the old stone. Here's. Oh wow, very nice. Zehaklal. This is the rule. In the Mishnah we said a rule. Whenever we say a rule in the Mishnah, we're always going to say, why do you have to tell me the rule? You told me the law. Why do you have to make a rule if you told me all the details? So, Lasu Yemai, what are you coming to include when you made the rule? Obviously, you didn't tell me all the details. There must be something that you left out. I'm going to need the general theory to apply it in other cases. So what other cases were left out? It says, Lasuye Oilas Nazir. This is interesting. Nazir brings a carbon oila. Now, this fellow was not necessarily a Nazir. So he says that I'm he's slaughtering the animal, and he says, for the sake of an oilas Nazir, of a burnt offering of a Nazir. So, and it's a problem. And the Mao de Tema, we could have said that it's not a problem. Why? Halay Nadar. He never took a vow. Or actually, an oilas Nazir is not brought, you don't donate it. If you're a Nazir, then you're obligated to bring it. However, but Amar Nidar Bitsina. But the problem is, it's really like Kamash Malan, that Amar Nidar Bitsina. I think Rashi has the Gersa Kamash Malan. It's coming to teach us that maybe he actually took the vow to be a Nazir and no one knows. And for 30 days you can't tell if someone took a haircut or not. And the fact that he didn't drink the wine at the Fabrengen, we'll say maybe he wasn't up to it or whatever. So you can't tell he wasn't drinking wine or eating grapes. And his hair was not like so long that people should know. So that's why this could be an issue. Someone says, I'm bringing this for the sake of a Eilas Nazir. People not necessarily know that he was a Nazir. Nazir is only 30 days, if he doesn't specify. Okay, now the other part of the rule, Sheina Nidav Nidav, if it's not donated, so then it's not a problem. That's Lasuya Lasuya Ledas. If he says this is for the sake of a burnt offering that a woman that gives birth brings. He didn't give birth, it's not a problem. So Amar Rabbi Lazar, Leishanu El Shein Leisha, this is only if he's not married. It's not a problem. However, Avol Yesh Leisha, but if he has a wife, maybe he's bringing it for her. So that would be a problem.
But you didn't have a baby.
We'll see in a second.
Why don't you say Amar another Vitsina? Amar, he had a wife Vitsina.
I don't think they had secrets like that in those days.
No.
They couldn't even hide which animal he had in the house.
Good point.
In the villages,
Right.
there was a lot of gossip. They couldn't distract themselves with what's going on in Japan.
That was before YouTube, right? Before YouTube.
Now we're distracted. We don't know what's going on by the neighbor. We know what's going on in the...
Right.
Okay. But he didn't say for the sake of his wife. So Amar Rabavo, Rabavo says, no, we're talking about that would be a problem if he would actually say that. The Gemara says, okay, well, if he said that and he has a wife, then pshita. Then that I don't need a whole rule to make this. That would be more obvious. So the Gemara says, if she gave birth, we would know about it. So here, maybe she had an early miscarriage. People don't know. See, there was something they could hide. Okay. Okay. going to start a new parak. This is an exciting parak.
So all these guys here are arguing these guys. Or at the end, you ended up with this guy.
No, because the Rebbe Lazar is not
yeah,
this Rebbe
okay,
Lazar.
thanks.
When we mention Rebbe Lazar, we're referring to that Rebbe Lazar.
So it's all within
You
this.
see, this is confusing. Rebbe Lazar in the Mishnah is always Rebbe Lazar ben Shmuel. Rebbe Lazar in the Gemara is always Rebbe Lazar ben Pedas.
I got it here.
Oh, okay. I didn't even pay attention that it was contingent.
No, that's
Okay.
not English.
Yeah. Yeah.
We're going to list. Oh, excellent.
Oh my gosh.
Oh.
You are.
You're all set.
Boy, you zeroed into the beat.
It's the beat.
What do we need for that?
No, no.
Just this.
Colors.
Yeah.
No hiding.
Today we're not going to get so. Today we're very general.
Today's your Reb Sushis. Medical school.
Oh, today's Reb Zushi's Yahrzeit. Okay.
You had it in medical school?
Very good.
I had the human form.
Tomorrow's going to be much better. That's what Reb Zushi. Okay. So.
Pretty clear.
Eily trephis bebehema. These are the trephis in an animal. There's going to be 18. So, but you don't have to count them out. You'll see. Nikuvas aveshet, if there's a puncture in the esophagus, even the smallest hole in the food pipe. Psukas agageres, if there's the trachea is severed. Okay. These two we mentioned before many times because we're discussing shchita. Nikav krum shel mayach. If one of the meninges, the membranes around the brain under the skull, has a hole in it, there's two membranes, the one closer to the brain and one closer to the skull. The closer to the brain is softer.
Do they check that?
They don't check. Rashi before, I don't remember what daf that was, but there was a very interesting Rashi. The Rashi said that we only... This is daf Yud Aleph.
Only there?
No. It's the wrong place. Rashi said that we only check the ones that are matzui. And even though it doesn't have to do with roiv. Even if roiv aren't, we check the ones that are matzui. It's an interesting Rashi.
That's common, basically.
Yeah. Oh, V'achas Mirchet Shefs. No, that's the one I saw before. Okay, I'm not sure where it. Yeah, no, maybe this is it. V'lei batkin daf Yud Bais. V'lei batkin kol yidches treifas. We don't check for these. However, nekuvas areya mishum d'shchiach bareyas batkin ba. Because it's frequent. We check the lungs. The other ones we're not going to, to cut through the skull just to check if the meninges are intact. Nikav alev lebeis chalali. If there's a hole in the heart, and it goes into the
Chamber.
ventricle, what's it called?
The heart chamber.
The chambers.
From the outside of the heart?
Yeah, from the outside to the inside.
What
Now,
about inside the heart?
oh, that's interesting.
Like
I don't know.
septal defect?
Right, that would be a problem. But
How would they know
but it doesn't say
They wouldn't know
unless they cut it
the
open.
heart. Yeah.
Right.
Here it says,
Over here, yeah. Are you going to say quote Tosfos?
No, Rambam. And it says in the halacha, it says if any of the chambers of the heart are perforated, the animal's a treifa in accordance with the ruling in the Mishnah. If the perforation did not reach the chamber, even if the wall itself was fully perforated, for instance, if the hole extends from one side of the heart to the other below the level of the chambers, then the animal's kosher.
Okay, but that doesn't tell me in between the chambers.
Oh.
Now the Tosfos mentions over here that why does it say lebeis chalali, into the chamber? By all of the other things, it doesn't say that if there's a hole, it doesn't say that it entered in to the cavity that's there. It doesn't say that. So Tosfos says that there's a chiddush here because by the heart, the skin, the muscle is very thick. So you could say that look, there's a deep hole, and it should be treif even if it doesn't enter into the chamber. So it says no, that's kosher. It has to go all the way in. The other ones are very thin material. So it doesn't have to say that the hole went in. But here I could have said that maybe it's straight even if it doesn't go in. That's a big... you see over here the picture. Now, there was a famous question. The Chacham Tzvi, they came to the Chacham Tzvi with a... I think there was a chicken that didn't have a heart. The Chacham Tzvi said it was kosher. So
Chicken or woman?
Who didn't have a heart? Is German or the...
That's impossible.
So that's what the Chacham Tzvi said. It's impossible. It must have been that a cat ate the heart, because it couldn't have been alive without a heart. And afterwards they checked. They said yes, there was actually a cat that was hanging around in the. They didn't cut it open to check the cat, but
So was the cat kosher?
so they said so, but Tosfos says over here, "V'nitel halev harei v'adaken la yitzchich lemisnei." It doesn't have to say if it doesn't have a lung or it doesn't have a heart. Why? Because if it has a hole, for sure it's possible. If it has a hole, it's possible for sure. So they quoted him Tosfos. Said, so what is Tosfos talking about when he says it doesn't need to say it if it's impossible? Tosfos is going to tell me impossibilities. So he explained that we're talking about where immediately before the shechita, someone took the heart out. They cut it open, ripped out the heart, and then it could live for a few seconds or whatever, and then they did a shechita. So that's why Tosfos says it's true. But that would only be the only possible case. Not if you just have an animal running around and then you cut it open. There's no heart. That's impossible. There had to be that there was a heart there.
They say some people are heartless.
When I was learning smicha, so there was a woman that lived nearby. She was a single mother with like 8 children. And she was always asking the students for help for this, So one time, one of the students got a letter from her. It said, "How come they teach you all the time about the stomachs of a cow and the lungs of a cow, but they don't teach you about the heart of a woman?"
Too complicated.
That's a good. Okay, Nishbara hashedra v'nifsak achut shala. This is an entire case. The spine broke, but that's not the issue. The issue is that the spinal cord was severed. Nitla kavid. If the liver was removed, and nothing was remaining. Because otherwise, if there was something remaining, a certain amount, the Gemara is going to talk, it could regenerate. The lungs have a hole, or their lungs are missing something. Discuss what's if it has a hole, it's also missing something. But Reb Shimon says it's not enough if the lungs have a hole. It has to go into the hole has to go into the bronchi, little tubes throughout the lungs. Any visible tube that the hole went into, a puncture that went all the way into those tubes, so that would be a problem according to Reb Shimon. Nikva hakeva. If there's a hole in the cave, now the way the stomachs of these animals eat grass and they chew the cud, the way it works is that they have front teeth. They have like 8 teeth on the bottom that they use to rip out the grass. Then they have molars in the back. But first they just rip out the grass and they swallow the grass. It goes into the keres, the stomach. If you have a picture, it goes into the first stomach. Yeah, it goes down the veshet, let's say, into the keres, the rumen, and then it goes into the... No, here the way it's put here is that it goes into the Bais HaKaisis. No, it goes into the keres and into the Bais HaKaisis. From the Bais HaKaisis, which is reticulum, then it's...
First, that's the second. There's another one here. This one, no.
It's supposed to begin to rot, and then it gets expelled back up. The veshet has the muscles that push it down can also have can also push it back up.
Wow,
then it will chew it up in the back. Then it will swallow it again, and then it will make its way through the other stomachs. Now the cava is the last of the stomachs before it gets into the intestine. The cava is the stomach that actually has the digestive juices. That's the more comparable to the stomach that we're used to. The over there's a enzymes that could be used to make cheese. That's in the keva. This is the part of the animal also that's given to the Kohen. So you can just imagine the front arm, the jaw, and the keva is given to the Kohen. The Kohen would be making cheese probably. Rennet. Nikva hamara. Mara is the gall. If the gall has a hole in it, and that would be a problem.
What's the omasum?
Yeah, the hemsis. I think it actually gets. The hemsis is the third of the stomachs. That's where it would go back to on its second leg. That's the beginning of the digestion.
Oh, yeah. So
It's this little thing that hangs off the base of kaisis.
You can make cheese from
I'm sorry? The cheese?
We ever made cheese with rennet?
Yeah, there's a very interesting tshuva from Rabbi Kiva where he discusses how to make cheese. But he discusses in there how we can make cheese from something that's fleishik, from meat,
Oh, it's chemical.
I don't know. In America it's probably chemical. In France it's probably, they're probably using the traditional way.
But it's not the actual.
No, but it doesn't
meat
matter.
itself.
It doesn't matter. There's ways of doing it. There's ways of doing it where it's kosher, even though it's meat. And it's funny when you look at these chuvas, you can get recipes for different things. I remember in the Rajba there was a recipe for hamburgers. He was talking about a question. Someone cut onions and he mixed it with ground meat and he was going to fry it. It was like okay, nikva dakin. If there's a hole in the intestines, there's another one of the trephus. Hakeres apnimi shenikva, eshenikva roiva chitzayna. The keres is the rumen, but if there's a hole in the rumen in that stomach, it's one of the sections of the stomach, or if the majority of the chitzayna, the outer one, which was probably referring to the Gemara is going to discuss this, but one of the ways of the abdominal wall, it's this area that covers most of the stomachs. So if that is torn, so that's also a treifa. Rabbi Yehuda Imer Hagdoila Tefach V'Ketana Baruba. Rabbi Yehuda says it depends. A small animal or a large animal. If it's a large animal, then if it's torn, a tefach. But a small animal will be a treifa by the majority of it. Now, the large animal, a tefach may not be the majority, but nevertheless it's still a treifa. So it's not ruba. Rabbi Yehuda is adding a chumrah here that even if it's not the majority